Let me know if you can hear me once you get in here. See if anybody hops in for this stream. Kind of a out of nowhere sort of thing. Welcome in, Lizard. Pasta. Hopefully the audio sounds good. Sounds like it's fine. Cool. Welcome in, welcome in. Yeah, we're just doing a random hangout today. I was going to draw some stuff and I figured why not do it and just talk about random stuff while we do. But I don't know, I've been getting into inking more over the last week or so. Been, I don't know, pulling out some of my old brush pens, trying some stuff. This one was like a Flaptraps digital painting that I studied that I tried to like transition into line. I really like how the horse head and his torso shield turned out, but I don't love the back end or really anything else about the horse. But I don't know, his style is very interesting, so it's kind of hard. So then I pulled up to like a Frazetta ink. This is like from the Lord of the Rings illustrated thing that Frazetta did, which I really liked. And this one turned out okay. I mean, I'm just kind of trying out lines and whatnot. And so then this morning I got out some of my fountain pen ink with this fine liner, and I've been running that here, and I'm going to use that same thing here on like a more official sketch. This one didn't really have any undersketch. I just was kind of copying. It might have been a Bruchema ink, anyways. And then over here, like obviously, I think this one was a brush pen, but it was it's the firm felt tip brush pen. This one was pencil, obviously, and then this one was the same kind of like medium wash brush. So let's see if I can pull them out. This one I haven't used as much. This is like everybody's favorite, but mine, for some reason, I've heard they're all unique and they don't all work the same. This is just the Pentel Pocket brush pen. Mine, for some reason, goes extra thick, and I can't really get thin lines with it, so I don't enjoy it all that much. This is the one I've been using, which is kind of a medium dark gray. It really shows up as dark gray on here. In person, it looks a little bit darker than that. So I don't know. But I've been using this one a lot. This one's really fun. Probably shouldn't bend that tip before we get started. And then this is the Tombow, like the felt tip one, which I think the only problem is it's kind of just worn down. I don't know. It's not as pointy as it used to be. I've had this one since, I don't know, probably like 4 years now. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to try some. I don't have any India ink or anything, so I've been just using my fountain pen ink, which I have. I thought I just could have sworn this was black ink, but it's not. It's like a bluish black, which I already had. So this one is an oxblood ink, which is really fun. I love it. It's awesome. Let me get out just a scribble pad. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna try it out and see if I can. I'm gonna be doing, this is a Bernie Wrightson ink that I may be able to pull up actually. Let's see here for you guys, so you guys can see a little bit of what I'm talking about. This is his Swamp Thing, I think, is the name. So this is kind of what I'm going to be copying and trying to emulate these sort of brush strokes on. Nothing really too serious. It's really just a study. I'm not that good at inking particularly, so I want to get better. So I figured I'll do this one, which is a one-to-one, trying to copy as well as I possibly can the exact brush strokes and the techniques of shading and indicating form and all that. And then at some point I was thinking of doing like this one and interpreting a oil painting into a line ink drawing. And then hopefully by doing this a couple times and studying and doing whatever, at that point I can actually take some of my own SpireHelm ideas or otherwise and translate those into inks, kind of with that, I don't know, with those techniques. So that's where I'm at. That's really it, honestly. I should probably grab a water thing. I will be right back. Let me know if you have any questions or anything else. All right, I'm back. Just wanted to be able to get this brush wet since I don't really want to ruin it. This is like the only liner brush I really have. I don't really do traditional media all that much, but it's always good to get it nice and wet first so that it doesn't destroy anything. And this one you can really get some blacks in there, almost blacks. It's pretty dark, so I don't know. We'll see what we can end up doing, but you can also use it kind of like a wash, almost like a watercolor. So yeah, anyways. I've been drawing. How did I learn to draw? I've been drawing for, I don't even know. I think I started drawing probably before I can even remember, but I did terrible drawings. I was not a good drawer for most of my life. Like, I think I started Calvin and Hobbes was really my biggest inspiration as a kid. And so I would do like my own little Star Wars comics in the style of Calvin and Hobbes. It was never really the style of Calvin and Hobbes, for being honest. Yeah, I've been drawing just kind of, I always use it as a way to get out my ideas. So I'd say I'm mostly self-taught, but I took my first drawing class probably in high school in 10th grade, I think. No, I took some art classes in 8th grade. I don't know though. I'd say the first like real time once I decided I was going to do art full time, like as a career, which is what I'm looking for right now. I think that was like somewhere in 10th grade-ish in the US. So before that, it was more just like a hobby. I thought I was going to do like military or something else. I don't even know. I had jumped around all over the place. And then I was like, oh wait, concept art exists as a career and whatnot. And so then I've been kind of in that realm ever since and kind of been grinding towards that goal. But yeah, I don't know. I've kind of just always drawn as a way to have fun more than anything. Would you have done art as a subject in school? I did a little bit in high school, and now my entire schooling is art, pretty much focused. So although it focuses a little bit more on the digital side of things, since I'm in entertainment design specifically, not so much in the traditional illustration. But I do love traditional stuff. I think it's like one of the best ways to get good. A lot of digital painting, to be good at digital art, you pretty much have to be good at traditional art in a way. So there's no point in throwing it all out. And I really like it for the meditative aspect to it. So yeah, hopefully SpireHelm can start a career. Yeah, it's kind of like a side project while I'm in school. But I mean, if it grows, I would love for it to become something bigger that I can really put, effort behind and have multiple aspects to it. And part of that, figure out a way that everyone can still be a part of it, but also that it could generate money and we could hire more artists and writers and things to, create a game or like a short story or books or whatever it is. Because I think at its core, it's fun as a community. But you look at things like D&D, and there are aspects of that community that are completely accessible to everybody, and then there are also aspects of it that are, you pay for good stuff. I think that's really cool. And then there are parts of it that are less cool about the money side of things, where people take advantage of the community and just try to rip as much money out of it as possible, and that's not as cool. But I don't know. I'd love to see SpireHelm reach its full potential, and I don't really know what that looks like, but I think we're on a good track right now. SpireHelm Renaissance. I hope so. Let's hope. Yeah, drawing's really fun. I think I was talking about this the other day, but just the paper drawing in a sketchbook is just the right amount of. You guys probably can't even like really see half the lines I'm doing in here. Should I zoom in? That'd be helpful. Let's see if that's any better. Anyways, sketchbooking in general is just the right amount of commitment to improve, in my opinion. Like it's like all my teachers always said, oh, make sure you're sketchbooking and blah blah blah. And I used to be like, I hate sketchbooking and whatever. I didn't like drawing traditionally because I was like, I'm never going to use this in my career. I'm gonna be a physical or a digital artist instead of a physical traditional artist. And while that's true, um, there's when you're doing digital, you can have the undo button so accessible that nothing really matters. Every mark you make is kind of pointless. And then there's like the flip side of it, which is like oil painting, or if I was going to do like a full-on painting, and it's every stroke matters so much, and you don't have an undo button that if you mess up, it could ruin the whole thing. And that's really stressful. And so you end up kind of freezing up and not wanting to do anything. And I don't think either of those extremes are conducive to good growth. So the best medium in between is sketchbooking, where I can't erase this, I can't erase this, but I could erase some of this, but it doesn't erase very well. And it's also kind of tedious to erase. Like I don't like erasing it. It's kind of annoying. So I'd rather not erase it if possible. But it's just the right amount of commitment that I have to be intentional with my marks, but I can't, like I won't freeze up because I'm so worried that I'll make a mistake. So I don't know. I think sketchbooking is the best way, and drawing is the true fundamental of all art, pretty much. So if you want to get good at art from a technical perspective, you pretty much have to be drawing frequently. That's just it. So yeah, we're gonna have a separate stream to discuss the peoples and races, which ones are gonna be part of the submissions. Yeah, I'm hoping we can have that stream maybe Monday. I have a bit of other things going on this week and some other prep I want to do, but I think we'll end up having that stream sometime next week early, hopefully. But yeah, that one should be really fun. If it's anything like the Valenhold stream was, where we kind of got the creative juices flowing. Should be really cool. I'll make my next D&D game set in SpireHelm. Yeah. Yeah, there's no really like 100% accurate way to do anything in SpireHelm because we don't have enough content yet. But I think you could definitely get the vibes 100%. That'd be super cool. Did traditional art for 5 years, but now I do digital and traditional since I draw on my iPad literally everywhere. Yeah, like my iPad is so awesome. I love it. And I do way more drawing on my iPad than anywhere else, which is why this sketchbook was started like, I don't even know. What was that? March of last year. So it's been a long time since I've started this one. I kind of use this one as my carry everywhere sketchbook. It's just got a bunch of random crap in it. Not really crap. Some of them are crap. Some of them aren't. Like these are better, obviously. This one was kind of fun. Like that little, it was like a stone sculpture, and I was practicing some drapery stuff. Some arm studies and whatnot. This was back in May, I think. So yeah, just like a lot of random sketches that don't really, this is like impossible to see. So, I don't know, there's a ignispecs of scales when I was just starting to come up with some of the ignispecs ideas. I had a really cool idea for like an ignispecs of bells, I think was the name. And it was going to be like a bell with like a body hanging from it, and that's like what swings around and rings the bell. Anyway, I don't really know how that ignispecs would work, but I thought the visually it'd be pretty evocative, and those sketches were pretty rough, and I didn't continue them. Some like castle stuff. Anyways, so like yeah, there's some good sketches in here, there's some bad sketches in here, but this is kind of like the no stress sketchbook. Whereas like this one is nicer. I love this sketchbook, but I end up getting more tense when trying to like draw in it. So I don't, all my graffiti stuff that I was experimenting with, I end up not drawing in this one nearly as much as I'd like to, because it feels like, oh, I want this one to be the good one. But I don't know. They're not on my This was like for my life drawing class, which was really fun. Got to go to like a greenhouse and draw. Comic stuff, and I'm not really a big comic artist, but I think the style is really cool. I think that one I copied from something. This was one of my D&D characters, I think. He was a beetle, like a paladin of some kind. He was like a gold, like, I don't know. Supposed to be some holy warrior with like a swinging mace sword chain thing. I don't even know. Some faces, which I'm taking head drawing this next week. Starts my next semester, so we're getting a lot better at drawing faces, hopefully, because that's probably my biggest weak spot. So I don't know. This one's like just a lot harder for me to commit to. It's a little bit scary. Whereas this one, I just feel like I can throw anything in and it doesn't really matter because it also has just like random notes and stuff. So, I don't know. It's whatever. Let's re-wet this. But yeah, I love, my iPad is great. It's great for getting ideas out, and especially like compositions are so much easier on an iPad, like with multiple characters and things, and you need stuff to fit in a certain way. It's just, yeah, iPad is so awesome. I find it so difficult to draw on iPad even with a textured screen. Just got too used to paper. Yeah, I had a textured screen protector for years, and I just upgraded my iPad, and now I'm kind of enjoying it without the paper-like screen protector. So I don't really know where to go from here, but I don't mind it either way. Let's see here. This is probably going to be kind of boring to watch, but I don't know. Could be fun. I think I need a little bit higher ink density. I'm kind of trying to start with like the not most important things, since a lot of times you'll mess up some, and like I'm just getting warmed up and whatnot. So I'm gonna kind of start with the legs and hands so that I don't mess up anything. Welcome in, Char. Being picky with the quality of the paper in the sketchbooks, these are like ridiculously low quality pages. I love the texture and feel of this one. This is a Pentalic sketchbook. I don't know. I thought I would care more because people were like, no, you need like the field notes, or you need like a moleskin with really high quality stuff. And then I just got these because they were the cheapest that I could really find that seemed to fit the vibe I wanted. And I really don't mind them at all. The one thing I didn't like was I took a class, it was like, what was it called? Visual literacy and development? I don't remember what it was called exactly. But we had to do a sketchbook in that class, and the teacher had a very specific sketchbook he wanted us to use, and I loathed those pages. They were way too textured. And I like this feeling you could get with them with like one or two mediums, but everything else just felt awful. I despised drawing in that thing, and because you had to complete all 200 pages in a semester in 3 or 4 months, I just never felt like drawing in it. So I got like a C in that class, or at least on that project, because I didn't get even anywhere close to finishing the sketchbook. But yeah, I like smooth pages. I like things that feel kind of like printer paper, or like Bristol, like vellum Bristol board. I just like the less textured stuff for drawing. Painting is completely different. I love the textured stuff for painting because you can get really soft edges and whatnot. But man, I just not a fan of textured sketchbook pages. So, yeah. I think this one comes down here. Yeah, maybe, I don't know how long this will take. I mean, how far are we into the stream? 20 minutes or so? Like, we'll see. I've got about an hour and a half left until I've got to go, but I figured, hey, let's hang out for a bit, see what happens, do some fun stuff. We can talk about anything we want, really. There's no real agenda here for this stream. Just for those who want to hang out, since we're all bored sometimes. If you guys want to, you can pick up your own sketchbook and draw. down. I don't know, drawing seems so easy when you're studying from somebody directly. Like you don't have to make any of the decisions. Like it's so much easier. And then all of a sudden you try to do it yourself and you try to come up with your own ideas, and even with references, like vague references, because a lot of times reference is really, really good. But they're never going to be perfect. They're never going to be exactly what you want unless you have the money to hire people and costumes and whatnot to go do your exact reference for you with the right lighting and stuff. You're still going to have to do some amount of creative work on your end to exaggerate things, but it's stressful and it rarely turns out how I like it to. I know I'm still fairly early on in my career, so I'm not too worried about it. I have a couple years left of school and whatnot before I really need to be up to a certain caliber. But I figured I should try until then, obviously. Life will be a lot easier if I get good now. So, right now, Joe, I feel like I prefer artist studies. Although when I'm working on a actual piece, like I have this SpireHelm cover art one I really want to work on that I've done the composition sketch for, but I haven't gone and like done any detailing or line art or anything like that. That's when I feel like I would rather do subject studies, because there's a prince or a knight on a horse with like a princess type of figure. And so I need to know how to draw drapery. So that's why I did some of the drapery studies by subject. Those were like, I need to figure out the way that, old school dresses and linens fold on each other. And then like the horse anatomy, I found some horse pictures that were close to what I wanted, but not exactly. And so then I had to find other ones that fit the reference in different ways. So I could study certain muscle groups from certain angles and then take those and exaggerate them into a certain look that I wanted. So I'd say when I'm just hanging around and just trying to get better, when it comes to technique, definitely artist studies. When it comes to creative work and like finishing a new project, probably more subject, I think. That's at least how I've done it for the last, I don't know, year or so. Frazetta's been a really big inspiration, especially with how he communicates form. I've been doing a lot of studies of his bodies and his anatomy. They're very, very exaggerated, but there's a lot of really good information in them. So I've been deep in his work, and he's a classic, dark fantasy artist. Kind of invented the visual genre that we associate with fantasy in a lot of ways. So he's been great. Let's go there. Sorry if you guys can't see like any of these lines that I'm putting down. I feel like I'm probably going too tedious out of the gate, but we will. Oh, that's not bad. But yeah, I figured if I can do a couple of these, if I can do some of the drawings for SpireHelm like this, I mean, this takes so much time compared to digital, but it's fun. And if I can do a couple of drawings like this and then color them digitally, like using the ink as a, I don't know, not a background, like a foundation, that'd be cool. I don't oil paint yet. Frazetta, I think, did most of his stuff in oils and maybe some acrylic. Or maybe gouache. I think he did some of his compositions in gouache. I'm really interested in gouache. I think I'm going to try to do more gouache stuff just in my free time. It seems like the most fun medium to work in, but I don't know too much about it. Yeah, I think Frazetta did mostly oil paints. He was an inker though. I think he went from inking like this, like line art, to eventually becoming an oil painter because his stuff was so good. And he's one of the few people that really was a master at both. I can't get that line correct. Holy cow. Yeah, I haven't oil painted. For my major for entertainment design, I'm not required to take the oil painting class. I had to do an acrylic painting class, so I did that, but I don't have to take. I think it's called Media Techniques is what they call it. So I had to take Media Tech 2, but not Media Tech 1, which I think is oils. So I've heard oils are kind of a pain in some areas, but also really fun and really rewarding. Like they are the kind of the standard for fine art because they are so high quality and you can get such good, you know, edge control and manipulation and all the great things that artists really care about and that make things beautiful you can get with oils. But yeah, I haven't done a ton with oils. His legs coming together. It's not terrible. You can use a wrist sweatband to clean your brush. Oh yeah, that's nice. I've been using this just like a wet shop paper towel to clean the brush. But yeah, that makes sense. I'd imagine a wristband sweatband would do really well. Um, let's get this going. This kind of is it's got all these like gnarly root structures growing out of his legs and whatnot. It's kind of fun. I don't know, Bernie Wrightson is he illustrated like an entire Frankenstein book with ridiculous levels of detail that I couldn't even like dream of doing. But it's really cool. But this one just felt more approachable as like a study. It's much less complex. Makes a lot more sense what's kind of going on. Required a lot less planning and sketching on my part, which is nice. So that's why I'm doing this one. But yeah, I think master studies are really helpful for techniques. You can learn a lot by just seeing what decisions they make, how to, indicate form in different ways. I'm not really loving that. I'm gonna make this sharper. I don't know if that really did what I want it to, but that might help. Yeah, I really like this brush compared to any of the brush pens. I don't find it too annoying to dip the ink. It's really not that bad. Hasn't been so far. Kind of gives you a little bit more control over the darkness. You can kind of like right now, I'm getting more like a light brown versus like right when you dip it, you can get almost a black. I don't know, you probably can't even really see the difference up there between the two, but maybe it's just wet. But it'll dry darker. I mean, you can see some of the differences there. Like this is all the same ink, even though this looks more brown, that looks more red. I think that one just has more water in it. But I don't know. I think it's fun. It's probably there. Let me just check something really quick. Cool. Yeah, what about you guys though? What have you guys been up to? I mean, I know we don't have anything SpireHelm going on, but any cool things happening? Any cool fantasy inspirations you've run into? The stream is kind of quiet. I've talked to Vincerus a little bit about doing like a stream where I do some drawing while he's making SpireHelm music, which I think could be really fun. So if that ends up happening, I think that would be a really fun stream. That way it's not just dead silence when I'm not talking. Got some like creative back and forth on both sides of things. We'll see if that happens. Can't promise anything, but you know, be fun. I still need to do a music stream as well with my synth. I've been meaning to rip it out and kind of figure out some more stuff with it, but obviously life is busy and I have other SpireHelm projects that are more important, like, you know, maintaining some TikToks, need to edit some YouTube videos. I really want to get some cool stuff of the Valen holds. I'm trying to think of ways. You guys might be able to help me think of some cool, or at least give me your input about what you would love to see. I thought it would be really cool to show off some of the bits of storytelling in the different Valen hold submissions. I thought it would be really cool to do like a voiceover type video like this, like I'm drawing something related to the Valen holds, whether it be a map or an aspect of one of them, and doing a voiceover of the fiction that you guys wrote, in like a old school, not like Bob Ross really, but like a retro, as if you kind of just tuned into a retro TV channel, and some, just some guy telling a story while drawing or doing whatever. I thought that would be kind of cool. And then, that way people can see, oh wow, this is like cool stuff that people in the community created. I don't know. Or I've also thought about just doing a follow-up video from the Valen holds on just the YouTube, and doing just a full-blown, hey, here's everything you need to know about the 4 Valen holds, and however long the video is, who cares? Just kind of going at it until it's all complete. So I don't know. Bob Ross is accurate for what's going on right now. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it'd be cool to have that sort of format in a way. Because I feel like sometimes people just want something slow on TikTok. Like, our lives are so full of fast-paced content that sometimes, like, just having something like, hey, chill around for a minute while let me show off some cool stuff from our community. And I don't know, maybe there's not a market for that, but to me, it's the type of video that I would sit down and watch on YouTube. And if I came across it on TikTok, I'd probably stick around. I don't know. But I definitely want to get some more of the community content out there, since most of you guys aren't posting like your creations out there. And SpireHelm isn't quite big enough as an idea yet to really make your own spin-off channel of just like, hey, here are all of my SpireHelm stories. I don't know if there's quite the audience for that yet. Whereas, like, if you were to say, here's my D&D channel with all of the happenings in my D&D game, obviously people care about that a lot. Their entire corporation's built around that. So yeah, I think it'd be cool to have some showing off of the cool community submissions. And yeah, I don't know. Happy little Valen holds. Yeah, exactly. No, but I think of like the Merisium fights, the one from a lot of the fictions, all the fictions are really good from the Valen hold submissions. But I think they would make really fun videos, and being able to do little, hand-drawn illustrations like this, just like little sketches and whatnot for people just to be able to visualize while they're listening to the story, I think would be cool. But then again, anything that requires more than, a microsecond of attention span usually doesn't perform super well on TikTok. So who knows if people would actually grab onto it. Okay, I should probably do this hand before I do anything else. What am I doing here? I think it needs to be that and that. And this one lumps in there. And that one wraps there. Not bad. I was going to make that one a root or something. I don't know. Kind of forget what your original plan was a lot of the times with drawings like this. I think the best inkers and illustrators and whatnot, they all have their own method to indicating with pencil what they want to do with the ink later on. And I'm not a trained inker, so I don't have a method really. So whatever I do is just kind of whatever I decide in the moment. Okay, we'll leave that leg where it's at now. I'm not really happy actually up here. I'm gonna crosshatch this because I want it to be darker. Yeah, I didn't do it either. Whatever. Live and you learn. Okay, let's do some hand stuff. Oh, that sounds weird. Let's figure out the hand stuff. Let's get the anatomy going for the hands. Not really a fan of that. Oh well. Hands can be really cool, but they are ridiculously difficult to draw and to design the shapes. There's just so much that goes into what you see on a hand. And I'm not even doing it here. I'm taking somebody else's design. Like they already designed the shapes. So I don't have to do the hard stuff. I think I want that. I think I'll just I think I don't know. Yeah, hands are hard. They can they're definitely the one that you end up redrawing the most. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe faces are also hard, but yeah, they can be a pain in the butt. But this one should be okay. I think I don't hate the sketch that I did for it, so there's a good chance that it'll turn out okay. Didn't realize the thumbs were inverted. Oh my gosh, yeah. I had an entire, I was in a gesture class. Was it last semester? I think it was. I don't know, it feels like forever ago because I've been at it all summer. Yeah, I had this gesture class and our teacher spent an entire lecture, which was probably like 30 minutes or so, just pointing out his least favorite art pieces from people that teach at art at my college. And he said, these people are consistently getting their feet backwards because there's like um, feet don't feet aren't like that necessarily. They're more like they have a scoop to them. Well, that's probably a bad example. They're more like that. Um, and so this is your this is the person was standing like that. And a lot of people will do this. They'll put the foot on the wrong side of the body. And so when you're looking top down at both their feet, you have this one going like this, and then this one going like that, and it just looks wrong instead of it going like that. And that was a bad shape, but if you get the point. And the amount of pictures he could pull out from Marvel and Disney artists and a bunch of the professors that taught at our school, he was like, don't do that. It's so easy just to make sure that your foot is the right shape. And it's so funny. But the fact that he dedicated an entire lecture to it was definitely proof that it frustrated him enough and that it's common enough that he felt it was needed for us. Because I think a lot of art at a certain point, you end up, nobody ever has enough time to get so good at art that they never make mistakes. You kind of just have to live with the mistakes that you make and hopefully improve them. But a lot of the time, it's more about you end up you have to rush through it, like commissions or jobs or whatever. Like it's always on a deadline, and so you just make sure the most important stuff is good, and you kind of get into a rhythm of this is how I do X, Y, and Z, and hopefully you don't have to change it. And I think a lot of people just figured out a way to draw feet, and they don't think about whether or not that applies to every situation a foot could be in, and so they end up drawing that same foot every single time they draw a foot, and it looks bad half the time, it looks great the other half the time, and they just nobody points it out. I don't know, is this like super boring? Is this kind of fun? I don't know. Ooh, I know you guys can't see it super well, so I hope it's not incredibly boring while I'm just noodling around and no progress is happening. Hmm. I don't know if I like that. What was I doing up here? I'm trying to remember. Seem comfy in my element? Thank you. I hope so. This is bound to be my element for the next 50 years, ideally. Or who knows how long I'll last. I don't know what to do with that leg. He had the finger. He drew it differently though, or he drew it differently. I drew it differently. Also, hope I'm not. Is my hair getting in the way? Should probably try to sit up a little bit, not give you guys a hair stream. I don't know. Save you from having to decide what I watch while you eat lunch. Yeah. Yeah, a bit boring, but kind of fun. Yeah. I figured. That is okay. Yeah, some of these like more chill streams I thought about doing on Twitch because then it would make this channel a little bit less confusing for newcomers, which I probably should do. I don't have enough followers that it makes a big difference, I don't think yet, or subscribers or whatever. But maybe going forward I should at least make it as easy for people as possible. Oh, that one was almost perfect. I like that one more. You guys can't really see any of the small details. I don't know, that's where we're at right now. Nothing too crazy. And I'll get back to the background and water and stuff, maybe. I don't know. This is more just a study, honestly. Not really any intention of going crazy into anything or polishing it. I mean, it's not my work. It's just a study, so there's no reason to go crazy. Yeah, gaming would be awesome. Music stuff would be fun. We find if we discuss the status of orcs a bit in this stream, yeah, we can talk about it. Because that's one that I've been kind of ruminating over as well. Because I think the principle, I mean, like a lot of things in SpireHelm, it's kind of what's the goal? What are we trying to do? And we're trying to fit into a traditional world, fantasy world, but at the same time have our own unique spin. And there are certain archetypes that should be present. Maybe should is the wrong word. There are certain archetypes that people may expect to be present in a dark fantasy world, like orcs, skeletons, zombies, necromancers, wizards, that sort of thing. I really don't like that leg. That is not exactly what I'm... It's getting really busy right there. You can't even really see what's going on. Man, whatever. I'm learning. Yeah, not a fan of that leg. That's okay, though. Yeah, I feel like orcs are kind of one of those that people expect to find in a dark fantasy setting. And so if they don't, they may be disappointed. But also at the same time, orcs traditionally, or at least typically, fill the spot that I would call like your stormtroopers is probably the best way, like the best colloquial one. Nobody gets sad when a stormtrooper dies in A New Hope, in the original trilogy. I mean, now we've gone more beyond that, and then now there's some more nuance into stormtroopers and stuff like that with the Mandalorian, which is really cool. But traditionally, at the beginning, stormtroopers were just stormtroopers. They were like the fodder. You could just kind of kill them, and nobody really cared. They were just the bad guys. And orcs and goblins in fantasy traditionally have always been kind of that group. They fill that role. So when you're writing a story, you know that you don't have to empathize with somebody who kills a zombie or an orc or a goblin. And we have to just ask ourselves, do we want orcs and goblins and other things like that? Do we want them to fill that role, or do we want something else to fill that role? And my philosophy so far has been, I don't know, I think maybe I don't have one. I don't really have a philosophy. I have some conflicting thoughts. On the one end, I think everybody expects orcs to be a certain way, and so therefore, if we made the orcs a certain way, people would get on the project and be like, oh yeah, I know orcs, and I get it. I get what you're trying to do. And if we diverged from that, I don't know if diverge is the right word. If we move away from that, we may get people who come into the project and go, well, I thought orcs were evil. Why are we doing good orcs? Like the D&D has kind of made orcs good again, and Lord of the Rings of Power, I know, has kind of done that, which is what Tolkien was leaning towards at the end of his life. He was like, oh wait, can orcs be redeemed? Can they be redeemable? So I don't know. But then at the same time, we have the Baal. We have Baal and monsters of the Dark One that can also be utilized to fill that role, because I think those truly are the most vile and also the easiest to justify killing, because they are basically non-sentient. I mean, they are sentient in a way. I don't know. They are just creatures of death. And this is about heroism. It's about, it's not really about the morality of slaying monsters by the hundreds. It's kind of more about, can you slay the monsters by the hundreds, or do you die? So that's kind of where I'm like, do we want orcs to fill that and Baal, or do we just want Baal to fill that and no orcs? I think orcs would be really cool as a core race, since they add a lot of variety to the core cast of elves, dwarves, gnomes, humans. Thoughts on traditional fantasy races? Yeah, I don't know. I really like traditional fantasy races, and I think there's the hardest thing for me with SpireHelm is how much of tradition do we use and how much do we make our own? Because we are fundamentally inspired by retro dark fantasy, and retro in this sense implies an amount of traditionalism. When you look at a lot of retro fantasy things, whether it be Lord of the Rings, Conan the Barbarian, I don't know, Sword in the Stone, Black Cauldron, those sort of things, almost all of them have the same view or treatment of orcs and whatnot, which is pretty much evil fodder that can be slain without repercussion. And so part of me is like, yeah, that makes sense, and that's probably a good thing. And then the other part of me is like, well, but do we keep that, or do we make it our own and reinvent the wheel, so to speak? So elves, orcs, dwarves, Tolkien made, usually because races are what set fantasy settings apart from other genres. Yeah, because I think, like, no offense to Brandon Sanderson, once again, we talk about Brandon Sanderson a lot. I feel like Brandon Sanderson right now is the poster child of what fantasy is, and I don't really love that because, in my opinion, his books are more sci-fi than fantasy. Even though they do have some fantasy elements to them, they're more, in my opinion, fantasy than sci-fi. And so when people go, oh, is yours like, do you have a super complex magic system? Do you have really eccentric races and realms and locations and planets and things? No, not really, because that's more sci-fi, in my opinion. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that's less traditional and definitely more, I don't know if progressive is the right word, but it's out there. It's new. It's modern. And there's a great audience for it, and I love reading his books because they're really entertaining like that. But yeah, I think the fact that there are elves, dwarves, that sort of thing present, I think that immediately tells somebody this is a fantasy world instead of, oh, this is some other, sci-fi adjacent thing. Personally against trying to, as Cam said, reinvent the wheel. Yeah, not only that, also muddies the waters for anyone coming into the project later on, which is something Imposter brought up. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, Joe, I think, like, my thoughts on traditional fantasy races is they serve a great purpose in, like, familiarity more than anything. When you go to play your first game of D&D, your dungeon master most likely tells you, so like Lord of the Rings or Skyrim or Game of Thrones, like, what's your favorite character from those? And you go, oh, I don't know, Legolas. And he goes, oh, okay, perfect. So you can be an elf ranger or an elf whatever, and that pretty much gives you 90% of the way there to creating your own character because people understand certain archetypes very, very well. And so I think those fantasy races imply a certain amount of, like, we don't have to do as much heavy lifting world building wise, and they don't have to do as much reading, a newcomer. If we've established, yeah, our fantasy races are pretty much Tolkien-esque with some quirks. Like, if you were to write something with a Tolkien-esque dwarf, you're going to be like 90% of the way there. And the rest, somebody might tell you, like, oh yeah, by the way, this and this and this is what you need to know. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of benefit in leaning on what people already understand about races like that instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. But I do think one or two small changes to each of them and an addition of one or two additional races could be all we need to really feel like, oh, SpireHelm is its own thing. It's not just a Middle-earth copy. They've taken their elves in a slightly different direction. One that I've loved, I've talked a lot about, I'm going to try to not get any ink on this book that I love, is Draw Steel. This is MCDM, if you know Matt Colville, if you're into the D&D space. They have two different types of elves. They have your, where are the races? Ancestries. I don't know how much of this I'm probably allowed to show. Probably not a ton. So they have High Elf, which is your traditional, like, fantasy elf. Not really Lord of the Rings, but much more like D&D High Elf. And then they have what are called Woad Elves, which are, that's background. Where are the Woad Elves? The Woad Elves, folder, I don't know. Is it before High Elf? Woad Elf. These are like weird creatures. These are like forest beings that are kind of crazy, and they can like kind of like memories are real to them, so they interact with memories differently than humans. They can like relive experiences. So stuff like that, small changes like that can really go, oh, I know that this is an MCDM fantasy world because they have woad elves. And when somebody talks about SpireHelm, maybe they talk about, you know, our lizard creatures or our dragon folk that have something very specific to them, or our elves or our dwarves that are like more unique. I think the MCDM dwarves are made of stone, so they have like their own kind of like mini magic system of carving runes into themselves, which is really cool. So they kind of took traditional archetypes and kind of went to the end with them, which is really cool. So I don't know. I think we could do something similar with a couple of the races, maybe not every single one, but just enough that somebody would go, okay, well, what's cool and fun about SpireHelm's elves? Like, what should get me excited? And then, but not so much that they have to like memorize facts about, you know, a very specific race or whatever. I think that could be cool. Grab this really quick. Hands looking better, more shadows. Thank you. It's fair. I grew up with Song of Ice and Fire and less Lord of the Rings. So coming to D&D Skyrim, everything feels samey. Oh yeah, I haven't read Song of Ice and Fire. Is that George R. R. Martin? I'm trying to remember. Or is it somebody else? I think giving orcs agency would be good or bad. Oh, agency to be good or bad, but more likely time to conflict with the kingdom other races than other races would be interesting. Yeah, I like that. Completely agree on the other two key changes ideas. Outside of that, go against the grain. So unique races are a special interest of mine. Yeah. Oh, the giants. Yeah. Four-armed race, that could be cool. If more occult races are tacked down, that could be cool. Yeah, the giants in the fjord. Yeah, a lot of people got really excited for the fjord because of that sort of thing. The giants are kind of a where is this going? I don't even know. I'm gonna break out of the silhouette here. Yeah, I think the implication of giants in the fjord areas gets a lot of people excited. Giants, dragons, potentially other creatures. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards let's keep most of the fantasy races the same, but let's give them something unique in the world to interact with. I mean, I'd hate to toot my own horn, but the Ignispecs is kind of a prime example of the way I envision the project to go forward, where it's everybody knows it's just an oracle. It's just a seer or a prophet of some kind that can read you prophecies about the future, which is a common theme in a lot of fantasy genres, all the way back to the Odyssey and, you know, the oldest tales in fantasy or mythology. But we put a unique twist on it where it's like, okay, these are the oracles of the realm. We've limited it to just this genre or this type of seer, prophet, whatever. But they are limited by the flame, and so everything has to do with, you know, their unique ability to scry into the unseen world, and that differentiates it from just your traditional oracle. Even though there's a ton of variety within the Ignispecs of somebody could take it, you can make one that's very whimsical, you can make one that's very serious, you can make one that's very scary. There's not really a limit to how you could go about interpreting that. What's the word? I don't know, that subject, basically, for lack of a better term. So I think it'd be really cool to do something similar with elves, dwarves, orcs, where it's like, okay, we know these are orcs and they still operate similarly to orcs. Like Pasta was saying, like, yeah, they can be kind of good, but they can also be evil. They're more likely to be, you know, counteractive, and maybe it's something in what, like, their belief system. They are more tribal in nature, and so they seek to only really care after their own. They don't like to believe in a bigger vision of a better future if they were all to work together. And, you know, they'd much rather say, well, I know my boss is my boss, and he's protected us for, you know, 70 years or something until he died, and now it's his son, and we trust him because we know he's as strong as his father, and, you know, that sort of thing. I think that's totally fine. And then we could also, you know, give it its own spin, like the Ignispecs, in some way. I don't really know exactly how, but I'm sure there's a way that we could take it that would feel unique as well. Just gonna add some shading into this hand. And I'm losing some of the detail by doing this. I may have to go back and add in some stuff. That's probably not the best shape design in the entire world, but we'll take it. Yeah, Fog of War, yeah. Only one continent? Yeah, as of right now, there's only one continent. I imagine we'll be on this one continent for a while. I don't know what would push us to a new continent, but I think it's more interesting if we keep it smaller scale. But then again, we may reach a point where we're like, actually, let's throw in something new. But I think as of right now, everything outside of the realm, which we also need to name, everything outside of the realm is considered like legend. So you could have a myth about a different continent with different peoples and races that look different and feels more like high fantasy, sci-fi, that sort of thing. That would just be its own place. An idea that devils are gods who have died and retain their minds. Instead of blessings, they give contracts, and because they're weakened, they need to get something back. That's kind of cool. I'd love to not just have orcs, but like different ethnicities of orcs. A lot of fantasy, there are different ethnicities of humans. Oh yeah, so like the fact that there's like elves, dwarves, you would also have different types of elves or orcs like that. Or are you saying more like human races? Because that could be really cool too. More so imps. The technical and not as important as other concerns, but we haven't touched on demonics at all. Yeah, what makes an imp? Is an imp inherently of hell? Is that kind of what makes an imp an imp? Because that could be cool. I don't really like that at all. Ugh, kind of just noodling around, probably ruining some of this by putting too much line in. Okay, let's get to the fun part. Let's do the face. Probably my weakest point, but we'll take it. Sorry, I'm like locked in here. Sorry, I'll get my hair out of the way. This is like the stressful part. Where you can make or break very easily the entire drawing. That's it, really. There we go. Imps are, let's see. Gray and green orcs, forge and mine dwarves, high wood and dark elves. Oh yeah, I see. Orcs with different characteristics, living in different environments, different philosophies. Oh yeah, that could be cool. Grand Archivist here is luxurious camera, yeah. One Western orcs or Eastern pig orcs. And we do little dragon dude kobolds or dog kobolds. Oh yeah. Imps are connected to hell somewhat. They are similar to demons, but their roots resemble old fairies and elves. Okay, that's an interesting twist. Green orcs could come from forest environments, and gray could be from the mountains. Gray orcs are harder and tend to have harsher features than green orcs. That could be cool too. I understand that. That makes sense. Yeah, stuff like that I think would be great, where somebody coming in could go, okay, I want to write something where the orcs are the bad guys, and then it wouldn't be hard to find where that lines up. You could just have your pick of, okay, well, do you want to write about this faction of orcs or this faction? Or maybe not even faction is the right word, but probably multiple factions within each race, obviously. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. There's also a little bit of me that thinks, does this need to be a community realm event? Or is this just better off like a brainstorming stream where we just work through everything until we figure it out? Or a couple of streams, like a series of streams. Because part of me thinks, like, other than really cool fiction, what would the realm event require for a races thing, you know? Sorry, I gotta get really close on this one. I mean, that didn't really do anything. It's all mushing together, but whatever. Green orcs could live in towns with other peoples, and gray could be raiders that have expanded south. Eastern are now attacking the realm. Yeah, that could be really cool. And then you could also have, like, I don't know, some sort of like red orc or purple or some sort of gray orc or something that could be completely in alliance with the dark one for exchange of like Urukai, where they're given like extra power, kind of. I don't think that's really exactly what happened with the Urukai in Lord of the Rings, but something to that extent, where it's like these orcs have aligned themselves with the dark one, and he has exchanged their alliance with money, power, promises of wealth or whatever. And so they've all kind of, a big group of them, you can go and be like essentially transformed into a dark orc of some kind, which kind of, you know, be similar to how, I mean, not exactly the same, but dark elves, there's an implication of dark magic and that sort of thing. Should be kind of cool. I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to that. We should have a stream or two to set up our goals and boundaries, then realm event. It's too big and influential to not do the realm event. I want it concrete and canon somehow before writing fiction for it. Oh, yeah. So how do we do that? Because that's a good point. Well, yeah, because with the Valen holds, it was easy because there wasn't nothing. The reason we kind of started with the Valen holds was because it's not really affected by much else. It's very informative, but it's not. It doesn't rely too heavily on anything else for background. You don't need to know too much. I think some parts of it would have been easier if we had more written. Obviously, some people were like, yeah, I kind of felt like I kind of had to do my own thing, which is kind of what we wanted. But at the same time, it can be a little bit confusing, so I get that. But yeah, I don't. Would we have a stream and then make it concrete? So like the stream would be about, okay, what are the races, blah blah blah. Here's like the foundation, kind of like what we did for the Valen holds with, you can choose which of the 4 you're going to do. These are kind of the understandings of each of them, and it's kind of your job to interpret it however you want. But I did hear some feedback of people saying, I wish it was a little bit more open because it felt like the 4 Valen holds were too narrow, and I didn't get enough freedom. And I'm not going to ever be able to make everybody happy with how we go about doing realm events and such. But I'd at least like it to be optimal, at least what we would believe to be optimal. So I don't know exactly how that would go. Black Orc Brigade, yeah. Orcs that are scholarly or artistic, just because it'd be nice to stay away from racist tropes that sometimes coalesce with races. Yeah, that's true. There's enough. I think that's a good thing with the monstrous Bale type of thing. Those can be the loathsome, irredeemable, hateable, absolutely no mercy towards the creatures of the Dark One that he basically creates out of his magic, versus the races can be more nuanced, have their own cultures, have that sort of thing. Even if that's not entirely traditional, it's better than, yeah, like kind of racist tropes and ideas bleeding in, because some people may try to take it that way. As long as the word limit is expanded a little bit, that's enough for me. Yeah. I want to be told to write elves because that's the event. Fill out this race. We need to be really cautious with our terminology and presentation with this chunk. Yeah. That's a good point, Moth, as well. Is like, yeah, because like I was saying, I think the traditional fantasy races lend themselves to a lot of use. They're very useful. It gets people into the fantasy. They understand generally what we're trying to do, just because we have orcs, elves, dwarves, humans. But I think SpireHelm would do well with some of its own races. And if people want to write their own, what does that format look like? And how do we make sure that's doable, really? So yeah, if the realm event is just, hey, flesh out orcs however you want, be creative, do some orc stuff, and then you're like, well, what if I want to do my own race? Then that gets hard. But also, if we open it up and say everybody can do their own race, how many races could we end up with? Like that could get to the point where we have a Star Wars amount of races in a dark fantasy realm that shouldn't probably have more than 10, that are at least common and influence the story in one way or another. So yeah, that's one of those things that I've been thinking about a lot. Also about elves, I want to avoid the 1,000-year-old elf girl trope. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because like the elves so much of it comes back to Lord of the Rings. It's really hard to avoid, with the elves being kind of this immortal race that were, I don't remember if they're before humans or how it exactly worked with the Numenorians and all that. But we're not locked into that. We don't have to make elves immortal. Elves can just be their own race and can have their own kind of stuff going on. Don't love the long-lived races. Yeah, only a number could get canonized. Yeah, and that would be the hard part too. Is like to set any arbitrary number of like, yeah, we're gonna canonize 5 races, and so if you're not in the top 5, boo-hoo. Like that's kind of, I worry about that a little bit. But also, it's not the end of the world, just because some people don't have their ideas canonized. But also 5 is such an arbitrary number, and so is 8, and so is 7, that if any number we pick, we may end up leaving out some of the coolest submissions, just based on the number that we choose, which wouldn't be super fun. So I don't really know where we'll have to think about how we decide which new races. And then that begs the question, well, do we do an entire separate realm event for just new races, and do we do that first, and then we do a separate realm event for fleshing out any of the races that we then just invented, / any traditional races that are going to be present in SpireHelm? That's its own can of worms in a way. Could have one free slot and the other 4 races. Oh. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Or were you saying per submission? Like you could write something for... Because I would imagine most people would only really want to write... Or each submission should be, I think, would be most effective, is each submission is only one race. So if you want to write about multiple, you can, you just submit them separately, like we did for the Valen holds, where you were allowed to do multiple if you wanted, but you were kind of, you only had to do one. You didn't have to do all 4. And so we could do the same thing with races, where it's like we could make a separate entry for new race, and we could leave the other entries in for the traditional fantasy races, which I don't think would be bad. Orcs, gnomes, dwarves, elves, and free race, like the Valen holds with an extra. Yeah, I could see that working. Where am I going here? I'm a little bit lost. Okay, so he has. Oh, that makes sense. Didn't really do this little drippy swamp bits down here. Now, get a little bit more ink on here. There we go. This extra fine lines up there. Anyways, you guys haven't been able to see a close-up for a while, so there's that. Not the most pretty, but I'm learning. I'm getting somewhere. Some parts of it are looking great. Other parts are looking okay. Oh, the website? Yeah. I haven't been able to get onto the website and do much else since last stream, sadly. But it's going good. It's definitely in a good place. Just, yeah, hard to get everything. There's always like another thing that needs to be done. You're like, okay, we're really close. And then turns out there's something else. Where was I going with this bit? But yeah, I think the website would be very helpful. When it comes to canon lore and reference for the next Realm event, I almost want it to at least be accessible, at least the compendium section or the archive section, whatever. I at least want that to be accessible by the time the Realm event starts, because I think the Valen holds could be great at informing some stuff. And if some of the stuff in them, like the fiction bits, are canon, like the, for example, the thing from Ephemera's, like the sap, the special wood that's like petrified or whatever, that could be some informative stuff for the next submissions with races. Like they could access that in some way, and I don't know. The arbitrary number would be the amount of races you would want to format and do the overhead for. Wouldn't want to do that for 12, but 5 seems okay. Yeah, 5 plus humans. That makes sense. You just kind of choose, like, we don't want to be overcomplicating things any earlier than we need to, and so this is the arbitrary number. That isn't super arbitrary, but kind of. I think that makes sense. Where was I going with this one? Kind of just farting around here at this point. What else was I thinking about? Some other direction I was thinking in. It is indeed Swamp Thing. It is I am doing an inking study of Bernie Wrightson. So, yeah, this is indeed copying. I mean, not one for one, but I'm trying to emulate the inking style and the marks from Bernie Wrightson. So there is no originality happening here really, other than my mistakes that are being turned into stuff here. But yeah, we're just hanging out and doing whatever, talking about potential realm event stuff. Now lost my train of thought again. Drawing and talking is hard. I'm not a great multitasker. What is going on here? There's some really cool shapes happening in here that I want to copy. Anyways, yeah, I guess just the only question we'd have to answer is, would we rather establish some of the foundational stuff first and then give it to the community to do fiction writing and come up with some of the more cultural aspects or some canon, features of these races? Or do we do it all at once? Do we let them come up with the stuff and write the fiction, and if it gets taken in an interesting direction, it just kind of stays there? I don't know really which one would work better. He's kind of all the way out from there. And then some lumpy bits here. Nice. Maybe that's a little too lumpy. There we go. Like what we discussed too far, sounds good. Have 5 submissions with minimal guidelines under the heading of orcs, dwarves, elves, gnomes, and free. Yeah, because I think the humans are kind of implied. There's always fantasy humans. Some people just love that, lets them put themselves in the fantasy, which is fun. I don't think moving away from that entirely, or trying to come up with a unique spin on humans, that's going to feel more sci-fi than anything. If it's like the what are the Dune people called? The Fremen. Cool stuff, but just more sci-fi than fantasy. So yeah. What about ghost ghouls and the like? I think ghosts and ghouls would be considered bales. We've kind of had a informal separation of beast and bale, where beast is kind of your monstrous animal creatures, and bale could be any sort of monster or creature or sentient being created by the Dark One in some form or fashion. So it could range from anything from a sentient human-like creature, or it could also be just a lurker or a zombie or something of the sort. Bale is kind of a more all-encompassing term. Make sure I'm good here. Okay. Yeah, there's been lots of new members in the Discord. It's been awesome. We've had I think 100 in the last 2 months, which is honestly a lot. I do like the idea of having guidelines, at least do parts with headings and fiction writing, description and stuff. Yeah, I think that sort of guideline worked really well for the Valenhold submissions. I I don't have any reason to think that wouldn't be a good thing to do again. That worked splendidly. So, yeah, I think we definitely continue that. This is getting too light already. Beautiful Swampy, thank you. Maybe in terms of headings, we could have an overall word count rather than a per section one. Yeah, that might be helpful. It was really interesting to see kind of how different people took things in different ways. Because I originally thought like, oh yeah, everybody would we'd get a lot of similar type submissions from different people. But it kind of turned out that each one had their own unique spin on just the submission in general. Like it wasn't even necessarily the Balin hold, but it was just their idea of fantasy and fiction, which was really cool to see, come out of it. So I wonder if we'd be better off just saying, hey, here's the general word count. Don't go crazy, but also you can apply this wherever you want. If you want to do more XYZ versus ABC, that's your decision to do with your stuff. The only downside to that is, for example, if we want, like races are a very kind of pinnacle might not be the right word, pivotal part of a fantasy world. And so if somebody decides to go crazy with the fiction and then do nothing else on, I don't know what other sections we'd have, but if they decide to go crazy on one section and kind of leave out the others, then people might be like, okay, well, what about this aspect of them? And they went, oh, I just didn't think that was that important. So there may be almost like more of a requirement of like, hey, try to talk at least about this enough to give us clarity. So there may be like a minimum word count and a maximum word count, like a minimum word count per section and a maximum overall word count. So like at a minimum, you've got to talk about this just enough that other people can interact with this, because that's really what this project is about. It's about collaboration, people being able to interact with your ideas and take them and run with them and do cool stuff. And if your ideas aren't fleshed out enough, then I wouldn't want you to not win your submission because you decided to take it in a different direction entirely and just omitted, the culture section or whatever, because you just thought it'd be more fun, cool to write about some fantasy story of a run-in with the orcs or whatever it might be. Okay, let me take a break there for a second, get a drink while I'm reading through chat. Yeah, definitely don't get on anything yet, Char. Anyone else in here? Wait until the realm event is more explained. Yeah. Like writing about food, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think, yeah, don't jump on anything yet. This is kind of just spitballing, brainstorming. This is not an official launch. The official launch will be the YouTube video, and anything else is mostly speculation and is always up to change, and could be, yeah, everything could change a lot between now and when the event actually launches. But I like the direction, I like the way that we're talking about it, and I like the ideas that we've had so far. This section here is not making a lot of sense. I don't even really know. Where this starts and ends, but we're going to go with that. Sure, whatever. I don't know, that's kind of where we're at right now. Not bad, not great. There's some parts of this arm that I really don't like. Like there's not any description of form here. It's more because I probably drew the arm wrong. It's not anything that Bernie Wrightson. Oh, I keep saying that, Whiteson. Nothing he did. Let's see. Yeah, more people end up using an overall word count. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know which, if you're using like a docs or whatever, it's hard to even know what your word count is. Dragon scale soup. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know exactly what we're doing for dragons either yet. We've kind of talked about them being more beast, but we've also had some ideas of them being more creature-like in a way. So that could be interesting to cover. I don't know where or when we get to that. Like, there's so many realm events we could do, and trying to figure out what order to prioritize things in is ridiculously hard because there's not really a good order of anything. That's just kind of the bottom line, is everything would be better done right now instead of waiting. Yeah, we'll leave that there. Blah, blah, blah. Something I'm noticing about this piece actually that I just thought about is the from a no-tan perspective, it's a very like if you were to break it up, it'd be like this arm is light, and then it goes dark up here, and then it's light here, and then there's this like dark section here that goes up to the face kind of in there, and then there's like a little bit of dark over here, but then this arm is like all dark, and this leg is light and then dark, and then dark. Run out of ink here. Dark. Oh, dark, 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 dark. But just the alternating, that's a terrible drawing. And then you've got like the eyes here. But just the alternating, like this arm is dark, and then light, and then dark, and then light. And then kind of top to bottom, you're still going the same. It's like light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So anyways, visually, compositionally, it's a very, very skilled thing to do, whether intentional or not. Probably just baked into his compositional skills, which is great. So for anybody who out here who is an artist, take notes. This guy knew what he was doing. This is not my art. This is wish I was this good to do this by myself, but I'm not. We're getting there. Thank you though. Yeah, I'm not disappointed in it. I'm enjoying where it's ending up, even though it's not quite at all like the reference. I've learned quite a bit. I think I could attempt some SpireHelm stuff in this style. I think I'll do a Frank Frazetta study as well over the next day or so. Maybe I'll stream it tomorrow, maybe I won't. If I do it sooner, I don't know when. But I think it'd be good to do an interpretive study of this is what an oil painting would look like in inking, and then from there I can take my own ideas and bring it to life in ink, and then I could take this and put it into Photoshop or Procreate or whatever art application and get it to use it as an underpainting basically for some stuff, which would be really cool. Throw some like comic style colors. We talked a lot about the dark one. Wow, my voice is already cracking. The dark one's color schemes and old school comics and stuff like that, and how they used kind of the print colors in a way. But some really cool stuff there to to explore. Pull this in. I'm going to pull these up, darken these shadows. It's hard to see, it goes so shiny in the light. Can't even tell if it's doing what I want it to do. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not disappointed with this. I'm liking where this has been going. Learned a lot about technique and whatnot through this. Let's do some water stuff. Let's have a little bit more fun. I think he does some really interesting stuff with his reflections, which are kind of fun. Does it like... and then just... that sort of thing, which is kind of fun. And then do this one as well. I guess I should probably figure out where this is going to end. And then we can do another one. Yeah, we'll go from here. I'm kind of going darker on the areas that have a slightly darker silhouette and less dark on the other parts. I don't know. It kind of reads better. Make sure this brush is nice and moist. I don't want any drying out up at the... I'm trying to remember the name. Everybody remembers the name of this little bit right there. I don't know what it is. Do you think there will be any guidelines for what we want each race to be like in terms of relevant, or just writing submission for whatever you think orcs would be like in this format? I think we'll need some amount of guidance, because I think otherwise we'll probably have too many good ideas, and it'll feel mean to say no to all of them. Like if we have 5 orc submissions and they're all good, I think Frankensteining this realm event will be a lot harder than it was to Frankenstein the Valen holds. So I'd rather, at a maximum, take 2 submissions, and not just say now go combine it with everybody from the community in every submission that we had. I don't think that'll work as well for this realm event. There may be some things that you could take, or that if it doesn't get formally accepted, or formally like if it doesn't win, you could probably reformat your own submissions. If you're like, oh, I really liked this story that I wrote, though, you could probably get that to work with somebody else's winning whatever. But yeah, so I think we'd make some sort of guideline and say, hey, here's the fantasy that we want the dwarves to fulfill. Like we'd have a stream, we'd go over, okay, what is... because that's kind of what it was for the Valen holds, where it was like, okay, what is the fantasy in the Maw? And it was pretty obvious. It was like, okay, this is the trade hub. This is, where guilds and militia thrive. This is where the government has kind of the least amount of stay, but it's also the most peaceful place because it's the furthest from danger in a way. It's got a very secure position. And then it was, okay, what's the fantasy of the river? And it's like, okay, this is the zealous, relentless war. And the bay was kind of the, here's our marauder pirate type fantasy. And so we got a bit of that. So yeah, I think, where do I want this to go? I think we should do the same thing for elves, dwarves, humans. I mean, we already kind of know humans. But I think we set up like, okay, this is kind of what the background is for the realm in general. And then you can kind of take that and spin it however you want in your own way. I don't know. I think that would work best. But I could be wrong. This to go in a little bit and then back out a little bit. So I don't know if that answers your question, Pasta, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. Sorry, some more like boring parts where I'm kind of locked in. We'll figure out details each out in the next stream. Yeah, probably on like Monday's stream or Tuesday or whatever day it ends up being. That'll probably be where the majority of the details are figured out. I'll have like a new doc open for this realm event that will eventually be shared and whatever. We'll go over like, okay, what's the fantasy for the orcs? What's the fantasy for the elves? What are the guidelines that we can give that will facilitate that sort of creativity? Because that's what a lot of it comes down to as well. There's just it's all about good design and good communication and being able to say, okay, this is what these are the type of guidelines we can give that will get us to where we want without restricting people's freedom so much that it would just be better if I wrote this instead of letting anybody else participate, because that's not really what I like. That's not what I want to SpireHelm to become. So yeah, I think that would be useful. Oh, right, he has an arm. Whoops. Probably need that in there too. I'll leave that kind of out there. Okay. Based on the stream's videos done, is SpireHelm YouTube channel anywhere close to being able to be monetized? It's reached the 1,000 subscribers, but not the hours needed. I think even with the streams I don't think really count towards much of that, which is fine. I don't care too much. TikTok is monetized, but I'm making, if I'm lucky, I'll make $1 a month off of like I don't know, probably like 5 or 6 videos a month. But yeah, where I'm at right now, it's not really heavily monetization level. Not enough to like definitely do this full time at all. But there could be a future where that's possible. And yeah, there's that fine line between doing this all for money, which I don't want to do. I have no intention of doing. But then there's also the more money that this project generates, the more cool stuff we can do, and the the higher the potential of the project goes. And so at a certain point, I think there will be there may be a point where we look at it and we go, okay, we could, if we release a product, like if we had a compendium book that was a physical book with illustrated art, that is not something you can give away for free, obviously. Maybe not even the PDF. But you could say, hey, the PDF is 20 bucks and the physical book is 60 or 80 bucks or whatever, and it's got this nice cover, whatever. You do like a Kickstarter type thing, and that would be awesome. And that way, if you don't care, you can just access all the information on the website for free. But if you want to have a cool book with cool art and you want to be able to use it as a reference for yourself when writing or whatever without having to be online, then, you know, that's an option. And so that sort of thing would be really cool. And it would allow us to figure out how to hire people, you know, to more people, you know, if it was to become like an actual studio where we produce books or stories or whatever it is, that would be awesome. But that's like a very far-fetched idea right now. And yeah, there's nothing wrong. I don't care if other people make money off of SpireHelm either. If other people are making their own channels, like I know there's the SpireFolk channel that's been out there a little bit, and they've been doing some stuff. I haven't been on TikTok as much recently, but I know they were talking about releasing another video or something about the Valenholds or about races. I don't remember, or the archive maybe. Anyways, I would, if that gets monetized, awesome. I hope other people can make SpireHelm can make money off of SpireHelm in one way or another. I think that would be the ultimate goal, even more than, you know, me, or if I ever have employees or whatever. I don't care. I'd much rather see other people get it out and make it a better project than just me. I mean, I think a very easy similarity is Dungeons and Dragons. You can see where Wizards of the Coast doesn't make a lot of money off of people's D&D YouTube channels. They wanted to for a little bit, and they tried, and then everybody got scared and decided to make their own games, which is awesome. But it's a cool aspect of the hobby where you can either play the hobby for free and not participate in anything else, but you could also buy the official book, or you could buy somebody else's unofficial D&D campaign that they created and made art for and have their own custom miniatures and that sort of thing. And I think all of those are okay. I think as long as there is a way for people to participate in SpireHelm for absolutely free, then it doesn't matter if money is made elsewhere. I think the principle is everybody should be able to participate for free. It's collaborative. But if somebody wants to make money off of it in a non-grifting sort of way, in a non-like, you know, trying to squeeze all the dollars out of somebody, as long as it's not like that, then we're good. And there's nothing I can really do to stop them. So, yeah, I think it'd be really cool if we get some awesome big projects. Yeah, I would love to have a physical compendium. I think that'd be so cool. Yeah, we'll figure out the timing for the next stream a few days in advance. Probably, yeah, the next couple days I'll send out a message and say, hey, we're going to talk about this. SpireFolk mentioned, yeah. Yeah, I love seeing the SpireFolk stuff. It's awesome. Oh, there's some in between. Wait, no, there's not anything in between. Okay, well, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is there any, whoops, anywhere else we need to go with this? It's just looking kind of done. I'm kind of happy with where it's at. Not bad. Nothing, not a masterpiece, but definitely worth the study. Let's put in Bernie. All right. study. There we go. Let's check a date on this one as well. This is kind of fun. What is August? Is the 8th month of the year? No. Yeah. So we got 8, 2, 6. There we go. Nice. I don't know. I'm pretty happy. It is a swamp thing. Too much thing needs more swamp. Yeah. Valid critique. Fantastic thing, you say? Say that again. Say that again. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much all I really wanted to do on stream today. Just kind of hang out, do some art, draw, do whatever. I would love to do some more SpireHelm art stuff on stream. I've just the pressure to do, like, to have a finished piece is so, it's like it can stress you out of even wanting to draw at all, which I'm sure if any of you guys are artists, you would understand. Because it's like, oh, this is my original thing, and then you touch it and you go, ah, but it looks ugly right now, and you can't see the vision. You can't see the end from the beginning. Right now, I have the reference up in front of me. I can see what it will look like if I do it right. And I got kind of close. Not perfect. This eye is a little wonky. That eye is a little wonky. This arm is not as dynamic as his, and it's a little skinny up there too. This arm is really thick. I had made this one thicker actually at the end. This one's pretty thin. So there's some fair critiques that I could point out to myself here, but I was more interested in describing form, which I think I did. I would say, I don't know, this leg is probably like a B. Down here is probably like, yeah, like a B. This leg is maybe B minus. This hand, actually, I'd say is probably one of the best parts. That's probably like an A. Some parts of the head are probably an A. This arm, I don't love down in here. The cross hatching did not work like I wanted it to. That's probably like a C minus. Up in here is, I don't know, there's some good parts everywhere, but there's also some bad parts everywhere. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what I keep doing. But yeah, I've got some really cool ideas. Like the one I would really want to see, haven't really decided which style I want to run it in. But let's see here. This one is kind of the idea. This sort of knight with a princess with a bow with some armor on like a horse with like a very, my idea is to have, see if I can find like a good reference for what I want it to visually look like. These probably aren't it. Because I thought about maybe something like this, where it's all inked. If I was to do the, this style. That's a little bit less cool. I think I'd rather have a full color piece and do it like as if it was a oil painting or whatever. Some of the ones I've been looking at, gotta be a little bit careful here. I mean, like something like this, you've got like the main art in front, and then you've kind of got, I thought was like the the dark one's eyes kind of in the back is kind of the idea. Not that he's like a physical Eye of Sauron type being, but just the evocative nature of like, oh, his presence is in the realm and that sort of thing. These are all AI now back in here. But yeah, some sort of cover art like that. I don't know if I'd go with this style. Seems a little bit different than my personal style. I love this style. I just don't think it's what I want to do for SpireHelm specifically. But yeah, something like this, with a very colorful background. I don't really know. I'm not good enough at, I don't have any oil paints. So I've got no way to really guarantee that it looks any certain way. But I love this sort of thing. So we'll see. I don't know if I'll do this one on stream. Probably not. At least not the next phase of it, because really it's line art, blocking in light and shadow shapes. It's going to be the next chunk of this, like a lot of this art, because in order to get a certain style, you have to kind of follow their process, which is a lot easier if you're using the same medium as them. If I'm doing it digitally, I don't have the same medium as Frank Frazetta, and so getting indications of light and shadow will feel different, but if I do it similarly in the right process to him, I can kind of approximate a roughly similar result. But yeah, I mean, something cool like this just gets you going. It's like, wow, this is really cool. And I don't know if I'll have creatures beneath them or what, but I think, you know, your traditional heroic hero, heroine, the villain in the background, some monsters around them. Like, here's a great one. Just that sort of thing. I think I used this horse as part of a reference. I mean, not directly, but, you know, some of the muscles and foot shapes and hooves. Frazetta exaggerates everything, so maybe I need to make my hooves bigger. I kind of tried to on the bottom, not so much on the top. Hooves. I don't know. Yeah, we just need something cool. Just something awesome that I can say, okay, here's an actual piece of my own stuff that is representative of the genre of SpireHelm and also the world, and gives people a good idea. Because right now I just don't have anything like at all to say, this is what SpireHelm is, and nope, we don't need that. It's all kind of like, yeah, you know, retro dark fantasy, kind of like that, which is so broad. But being able to see something like this that tells a little bit of, has a little bit of storytelling, but mostly just cover art. Ollie's not in here, is she? Oh, the classic old school Warhammer, you know, something cool. That's all we need. So I'll probably work on the next phase of that by myself. And then once it gets to like a polishing stage, I'd be happy to stream some of that, do some more talking while it's the easy part. Yeah, anyways, that's really about it for this stream. Love to discuss exactly what the Forces of the Dark One look like. Yeah, that's going to be a really big, probably its own realm event next, I think. If not, yeah, I don't know. Is there a common motif, fleshy tendrils, or what? William O'Connor, he's a modern artist, but has some Dracopedia books. Okay, wait, let's see. Need to move this to where it won't destroy anything, so I can type William O'Connor. Is that what it was? William O'Connor. Let's see here. Oh, I think, is this it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's some really cool stuff. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely save these. These are tough. Oh, I've seen this one. Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh no, not Strongholds. No! SpireHelm Vibes Touchstones. That's the one. Yeah. I have seen some of his stuff. Or is it, it says studios. Is it like a team of people? I don't actually know. That's really cool. Thank you for that. Dracopedia Legends. Let's see. Whoops. Dracopedia. Oh wait. Is this one? That's really cool. Love this. I've also thought about doing kind of this style, which is more medieval, which is kind of fun, kind of whimsical. A little bit less dark, like retro dark fantasy, but definitely I would love to see some art for SpireHelm in this style, kind of ink quill sort of things. Done some world building of his own with Bestiary of Dragons. Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I think that's really it for this stream. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for sticking around for those of you who are here. Yeah, that's a bit. That's about it. So we will maybe have another one of these soon, but at a minimum, we'll probably have next week's either Monday or Tuesday stream or the next Realm event. I look forward to seeing you guys there. Anyways, have fun. Goodbye.